It was a cold day in February in Korea, 1981. I just turned 18 years old. You see, I joined the military when I was 17, and I was sent to Korea. To commemorate a famous battle that had happened during the Korean War, it was decided we needed to go on a big, long march. So they loaded us up into Huey helicopters. Those are the helicopters they used during the time of Vietnam. The Black Hawks had not been available to us just yet, but I do know when I got to Fort Campbell, Kentucky at 101st, they had the Black Hawks there. So they load us up. And they fly us into this military base, South Korean military base. And we land on their parade field, and it's almost dark. They feed us. You ever see MASH, those big tents? That's what we had for our chow hall. It was a big old tent that night. And then we put down our little tents and we go to sleep. If you could sleep in the cold. The ground was frozen. However, it got a little warmer through the night. We woke up, and what do you know? We're in a muddy field. There's a picture. I honestly took my shovel, had to scrape mud out of my little tent there, my little half tent. They gave you a tent that was cut in half. You had to put two halves together to make a whole tent. I didn't want nobody sleeping with me, so I bought my own other shelter half and had my own tent that way. So there I am, shoveling mud out of this tent. We go eat, we pack up, and we go to marching. We marched 84 miles. Not that one day, though. No. And what we would have to do is we would march, and at the end of the day, we would stop, and that's where we would sleep. So that first day, we're marching, and it's rainy and snowy. Very few of the roads we went on were paved. They were mainly dirt and mud roads. I remember at one point, it was a narrow road, and a bus went by. So we all had to kind of get up on the bank. And as that bus is going by, I slipped and went underneath the bus. Well, thankfully, my young 18-year-old self got scared enough to hurry up and jack back up that bank. So I didn't get hurt. And we would stop every so often and take a break. And then at lunchtime, sea rats. That's what they used to have, sea rations. These are canned food in a box. Some of you old timers know what I'm talking about. So we would eat sea rats and then back at it again. And we went up and down mountains and hills. I remember sometimes walking in mud that was so deep that it would go halfway up my boot. And it would make that sucking sound. You'd step in it and then you'd have to pull your leg out to get to the next step. That was some hard, heavy marching. Had our rucksacks on our back. 20 miles a day, maybe just a little bit more. Then we get to the end, and there's another chow hall set up. You see, they would load them on the deuce and a halves, the trucks. They would send them ahead. And we would eat and then bed down. I know there was one time where we bedded down, and it was a farmer's field, and there was a haystack, and there was snow. There was about 4 or 6 inches of snow on the ground. And they had this big old roll of hay, and I just cocooned my way in there with my sleeping bag, didn't put up a tent, and slept really good that night. Matter of fact, I remember when I crawled back out of it in the morning, I seen a little steam coming up from that haystack from the warmth that I was giving off in my sleeping bag. And then we'd march on, and it was hard, and it was tough. And I seen men that had been in the military for years, Vietnam veterans. When I went in the Army, it was anybody with a decent rank was probably a Vietnam veteran. Any of the E5s, that's sergeants or above, most of them were Vietnam veterans. And I know they went through hell. And I seen some of them leaning on a fence post, crying, just can't go anymore, just can't go anymore. And they'd send a relief truck, pick them up, depending on how bad off they were, they would get them to the next place, and they wouldn't have to march that day. Some of them, they would say, okay, well, you can take a break for about an hour, then you got to get back at it. Well, I had too much pride. I wasn't going to do that. I felt like it, though. I was not going to do that. And then we marched and marched. And another time, there was either 3 or 4 nights. And it was just farmers' fields. There were times when I slept on icy ground. There were times when I slept in a haystack. Hey, I'm going to tell you what, the military really makes you know how to be tired. I acquired this skill in the military that I could sleep anywhere. Even today, I can take a nap when I'm not even tired. Anyway, we marched and we marched. And then finally, we come to camp. I was in the 2nd Infantry Division, okay? That's in Korea. Just this shirt right here. 2nd and none. 2nd Infantry Division. So I was stationed at Camp Hovey, and Camp Hovey was a little camp, a little base, right beside a bigger base, Camp Casey. So we go marching through the front gate of Camp Casey, and I'm thinking, finally, today's the day. We're going to get to our camp, and we're going to go, and we're going to take showers, and probably pass out. So we get to Camp Hovey. And they put us on a parade ground. And I'm looking, and there's my barracks right there. I could see my window. And I don't want to be here listening to high brass telling me about what a great job we did. I want to be there taking a shower and just climbing up in my bunk. What is the point of this whole story? Other than to document that I did it, and it was just part of my life back then. I learned something. I learned then that I can do anything that I set my mind to do. As long as back then health wasn't an issue. I couldn't do it now. But back then health was not an issue. And I marched 80 miles in the snow, in the rain, in the mud, slept in hay bales, slept in the mud, and I kept going. There is a saying that you quit too early, or you quit before you were done. That is the problem with a lot of people. They quit before they're done. They give up before they get to the light at the end of the tunnel. Never give up. Keep going. One step in front of the other. Keep going and never, ever give up.